Hi guys, welcome to Haven't Seen What? A married couple's quest to rectify the wrongs of their partner never seen culturally relevant movies. I'm Joelle.
I'm Parry.
And we're the married couple in question.
Indeed we are.
Still married. That was not rehearsed.
Still married after having watched a number of each other's movies. So that's a good sign for the future of not only this podcast, but our marriage.
I'm just saying, wait till we get to Mosquito Coast. That's all I have to say. I have to watch that shit again. It was pretty terrifying the first time.
You're so hearing from Harrison Ford fans.
That's fine. He could tell me all about how...
They're going to tell you about your Ross hole, all right. That's what they're going to tell you about.
Okay, whatever. Whatever they want to... Don't say that word. That's really bad.
Really?
Yes, you're not allowed.
Okay.
Do not say Jamaican cuss words unless you're Jamaican. And even then, Jamaican cuss words are bad.
Should we cut that part out?
No. I mean, keep it in there. I think my family will find it amusing that you said that.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to hear from Grandma and Grandpa, buddy.
No.
Yeah, sucker.
I don't want Grandma upset.
She might be. She'd be like, what do you know about... What is Joelle teaching you? She's not going to be upset at you. She's going to be upset at me that you said it.
I'll say I learned it from Paula.
There you go. Paula, you're getting all the blame on our podcast. All the blame.
Yeah. I'll say I learned it from Paula's children. And then she'll really be in trouble.
No, because then I taught it to Paula's children.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. Come on. Either way, I'm getting the blame for you doing things. Isn't this how this always goes? Anyway, so we are obviously the married couple in question. And we are just trying to watch each other's favorite movies. We
have reached one of my all-time favorites this week.
So the movie that we watched this week was Electric Dreams, the 1984 movie, versus Electric Dreams, a TV show, right?
Yeah, that's an anthology series based on Philip K. Dick's writings.
Oh, there's a lot of dick being brought up recently. No, I'm referencing Blade Runner.
Oh, I know. But,
I meant that really innocently.
I was just thinking where our audience would go.
Oh, boy.
Putting myself in their shoes.
Thanks, pervy husband. So, where we watched Electric Dreams this week, I had never seen the movie, but Parry has seen the movie, and I want to probably put this disclaimer out for him. He is a fanboy of this movie. If there was ever a movie that he was a fanboy about, you thought it was Blade Runner, but you're wrong. It's probably this movie. This and Back to the Future are really probably the most influential in your life.
The most influential when it comes to... I should really qualify myself here a little bit. I am what is known to some as a film snob. In many ways, I love deeply intellectual character studies and long drawn out storylines and
long drawn out for sure.
Yes. Films like, Koyaanisqatsi is one of my favorites that we're going to get to. I adored that type of film, but I am not someone who is going to hate on fun movies. I don't
really.
I don't want to be, I'm going to point out some shortcomings. I just don't want to be insulted. And it was really more into the 90s that there were a lot of films that I was just like, oh my God, it's script by freaking committee here. This just is nothing original or new. It's not even fun. And I can forgive a lot if a movie is fun. And in going back to a lot of these films that I love, there are a lot of problems with many of them. And Electric Dreams is one. But I have to say that if I were a judge, I would have to recuse myself from the case because I am so deeply involved with this movie from 30 years ago and 30 years worth of viewings that I cannot be unbiased. No matter how bad it can be, I'm going to love it.
So you're a fanboy.
Deeply a fanboy.
Right. So no problem. So we don't talk about Star Wars in this house negatively, and neither do we talk about Electric Dreams negatively.
There is some Star Wars we've talked about negatively that I can go with.
Old school? No.
There are some problems.
No.
Don't send me letters.
No. Okay, sorry I opened this can of worms. So Electric Dreams.
I am sure there is a whole explanation for the timeline issues in Empire that I haven't read.
No. Electric Dreams.
Yes.
Definitely we can't talk about Star Wars. What's wrong with you? Oh my God.
No, we really shouldn't start talking
No.
about one sci-fi movie with an entirely different franchise.
That's not even why.
This isn't even a franchise.
That's not even why. Like, bye, audience. See you later.
Yes, we'll get anthrax mail.
Yeah. Oh my God. No, please don't give people ideas. What's wrong with you? So Electric Dreams. All right, Parry. Now let's see if you can do this. Synopsis. 4 lines max.
Oh, well. Electric Dreams is a story about a highly disorganized guy who was talked into buying a computer by a coworker and a very pushy salesperson, and manages to bring the computer to life through a data overload and champagne in one of the most ridiculous AI creations in film history. The computer comes to life and falls in love with the same woman that our main character is also falling in love with, the neighbor, and it becomes a love triangle between a boy, a girl, and a computer.
Okay, that really wasn't that bad. I count about 80 words. That wasn't so bad. Mine's a little bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Mine borrows from the beginning, and it says, "A fairy tale for computers. Boy buys computer and gets the girl."
That gives away the end. What kind of a tagline is that?
It's an 80s movie.
True, in 80s movies, they would like tell you the whole movie on the tag because they figured you wouldn't watch it unless you knew how it ended.
Exactly. It's super transparent.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not a deep movie.
It is not a deep movie, and even the director, Steve Barron, has admitted that there wasn't a lot of depth to it. It wasn't really intended to have a ton of depth.
It's just a feel-good movie.
Yes. And because it was made at a time when music videos were still very new, this is, it was shot in, 83? And so it was released in 84. But music videos were still a very new thing. And so filmmakers were still toying with how to build whole movies in that video style, in that what became known as the MTV style, the rapid cuts, the musical sequences. And even though musical montages had been around, the 80s montage that feels like a music video was really fairly new. And Steve Barron was one who had directed tons of music videos prior to this. So he was one of those first music video directors getting into filmmaking. And that works and it doesn't work at the same time.
So I actually looked up Steve Barron. Sorry, I didn't know who he was before, but I guess that's the whole purpose of this podcast really is to discover and understand what your partner truly likes.
He's an impressive history, doesn't he?
Yeah, and why he likes him. So just highlights on Steve Barron.
Yeah.
Literally, 3 of his most famous videos. Billie Jean.
Top 1 of his most famous, yeah.
Money for Nothing.
Awesome video.
Dire Straits, right?
Even the Weird Al Yankovic version, Beverly Hillbillies, is amazing.
Oh, God. You're such a nerd. And Take On Me by Aha.
Which
is the fucking best video ever created. Ever. Sorry.
Hasn't it been named the greatest video of the 80s?
It just is. It's just new. It's different. It's innovative. Even in the newness of music videos, when it came out, everyone was like, this shit is crazy bananas. So if you haven't seen Electric Dreams, this is going to make Electric Dreams make so much more sense to you in the sense of the cutaways, in the sense of being a music video, in the sense of how music is utilized in this film versus Flashdance. So Flashdance, I think the music is used as a way to push forward the movie. It really helps pace the movie. Mm-hmm. But in this movie, the music is utilized to create scenes and it cuts away the scene. Mm-hmm. It almost becomes the editor in a way.
And yeah, the musical sequences generally stand alone from the rest of the story. Even though they're adding to it, you're right, they're not helping to tell the story necessarily as in Flashdance. They're almost like music video asides.
It's like a cutaway. It's just different. It becomes a different utilization of music. It becomes a differentiation of the visualization of music. And knowing that he was predominantly a music video director really helped me understand the movie more.
And like I said, he was one of those first music video directors, and they were looked down upon at the time. They really weren't looked at as filmmakers. And
well, there's a whole lot to do with reception and critical reception and money at the box
and
office.
That still sometimes is an issue for music video directors making that transition into filmmaking. Doesn't always work. But at the time, Hollywood was still trying to figure out how to incorporate that new style. And so they were hiring music video directors. I think sometimes the issue was that the stories weren't strong enough to turn into 90-minute movies.
Okay. We might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Yeah. So, all right, fanboy. What's your favorite quote from this movie? What's our podcast named after?
My favorite quote from the movie is, first, a little context has to be. Our computer, we do not know the name of it until later on, but one of our main characters in the film is named Miles. And he's the one who has purchased the computer and has managed to bring it to life by mistake. And he accidentally types his name in wrong.
Moles.
And he types in Moles instead of Miles. And when the computer achieves sentience, it just continues to call him Moles. It never picks up on calling him Miles.
So you can't correct it.
Right, once you put it in. So he always calls him Moles. And at a point in the film when he's having the computer write songs for him, he tries to explain what love is because he wants the computer to write a song for Madeline, the woman who lives upstairs, who believes that Miles is a musician. We'll get to that in a little bit. But he asks the computer to write this song and tries to explain love. And at one point, the computer says, "Moles, that does not compute." And I think that is my favorite line in there.
That's your favorite line in this whole movie?
No, but I think it's the most fitting for a title.
It's a very honest answer.
I think my favorite line is when the store clerk, when Miles says to the clerk, "I don't know anything about computers," and the clerk says, "Nobody does."
Oh, it's way better.
Okay.
Jeez.
Well,
Oh, God.
I didn't know we could have two people for a title. We hadn't determined that rule yet.
I guess.
I was going for efficiency.
Okay, that's fine. So, oh boy, I'm going to ask you a really open-ended question right now, and I'm afraid for myself. So your takeaways, like your big takeaways from Electric Dreams. And I know how old were you when you saw this?
I first saw this in, I think, 1985.
Oh, you're 11.
This was on early HBO, and my grandfather, Joe Curran, Pap-Ap, affectionately known as, who unfortunately passed away just a few years after that. He would record, he was an early HBO adopter, and he would record tons of movies, and he was the one who introduced me to...
Oh, he would record them like on the DVR?
Yes, but on physical media known as a VHS.
Cassette.
Indeed, yes. He would record them on his VCR and would play them for me when I would come to visit. I would stay with him for a week in the summer often, and we would watch these films together. And this was one of them that he introduced me to. And so...
Yeah, didn't you like steal the tape from him?
Oh, yeah.
He's looking down at you and pointing his finger.
I borrowed a lot of those tapes from him one summer, but with his permission. And then when I returned them, I did not return Electric Dreams. And apparently he later said that he was irritated with me for not returning that. I feel bad about that now. And I think I still have that tape in storage somewhere.
Everything's in storage.
Well, yes. I don't think I've ever thrown anything away.
Oh my God. Makes my OCD heart hurt so bad.
Especially since you've never seen the inside of that storage shed.
Oh my God. I'm so afraid.
In
Be
a whole
afraid
nother
for
state.
him. But as a whole, how did your 11-year-old self really feel about the movie?
It made me believe that AI could exist. And it was not the first film that had dealt with that topic, but it was the first time where it seemed like you could be friends. And this is pre-Star Trek The Next Generation and some of those other friendly computers or androids. It really made me believe that you could be a friend with a computer. And so as an 11-year-old, I desperately wanted to figure out ways to make my computer come to life and be my buddy.
I know so the tech in there, you bring up such a great point. One thing that sort of blew me away was number one, the graphic design for the time, because really computers couldn't do that shit back then.
No, it does a lot of things.
It does a lot of things that computers can do. I mean, aside from talk and, run its own security and, oh wait, I feel like that's sort of like my iPhone. And
the idea of a smart home,
where
it controls
home,
all of you,
right?
can control your doors and your lights and your it's connected directly to your refrigerator and your stove.
You can do designs and do all these crazy things. And
yes,
sort of part of this movie talks about the big brotherness of computers and of video tech and of video surveillance. And as it progresses and as it goes along, is it going to be this thing that monitors us and monitors our movements? AKA Waze, AKA Google Maps, AKA all these apps that are now on our phone. And I kind of looked at Parry at one point and I said, do you think Bill Gates and Steve Jobs watched this too? Because I feel like everything that they're talking about, we now have.
I really want to talk to Steve Wozniak about this and ask if they took some of their ideas directly from Electric Dreams.
Oh, they did. Like when we call our computer hibernating, really sleeping.
Yeah, when you call it sleep, at one point in the film, he tells the computer, which later calls itself Edgar.
Yes.
Interesting fact about that is that Edgar was an early computer language, and so it may have been where that came from. But at one point, he tells Edgar to go to sleep, and computers at the time didn't have a sleep function.
No, it was on or off.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, this hibernating state on our current computers has always been sleep.
Yeah.
So direct correlation. I'm just saying.
Was Edgar a proto-Siri?
Listen, this whole thing is like a proto-Siri. This is like, oh, here are the apps to create. Here are the gimmicks to go ahead and make. Here's the tech plan for the next 20 years of these computer companies. Like, here's a design program. Here's, word processing. Here's a music making program. Like, why wouldn't this be sort of this blueprint of what to do?
It really predicts a lot of things. And
does it predict or do they take it from it?
Well, I think both. I think it may have predicted these things that may have been, or it may have inspired. Let's say that. It may have inspired a number of things or inspired evolutions of things that existed. Like the internet did exist in a form called the ARPANET. But at that point in the early 80s, I think it had gone to being academic use as well. Prior to that, it was military use and research. But at one point, there's a very modern moment where Edgar, the computer, asks, "What's a dream?" And Miles says, "It's a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep." And Edgar wonders where that's from. And Miles says, Cinderella, 1958. And Edgar, you hear him screen through a bunch of TV shows that he's tapped into, and he goes, "No, it was Sleeping Beauty, 1942, or whatever year that came out." But he has gone and gotten that information immediately. So Edgar is very much a Google,
a Siri, an Alexa, or whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry, I'm leaving you Android users out. I don't really use it, so. I only know what I use.
I if I were to get an Alexa, I would want to rename it Edgar.
Of course you would.
But your point about that was what my takeaway was as an older self, is that, again, it really does predict a lot of the invasiveness of technology and that inescapable feeling we have now that we are always being monitored, that someone knows everything about our habits, our search habits, our shopping habits, and could potentially do some harm to our reputation or steal our identity, as we see in the film.
Yeah, it's... when Miles, Moles, goes ahead and utilizes all of Edgar's ideas to get the girl.
And when Edgar gets pissed off that he won't let him tell the truth of who's writing all these songs and decides to really screw with them and cancels all his credit cards and puts out an alert to the police that he's wanted and dangerous and really just fucks with his life.
And I think this is a great segue into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, that whistle wasn't too bad.
Better.
That was
Improving whistle.
That was better. I'm trying.
Each week.
Trying. Maybe I need to practice. Or maybe not. So the good for you. Make it short, Parry.
There are so many things I consider good about this movie, but to look at it from the standpoint of not just a fanboy, which is tough, I would say that the sequences that help to bring the personality of Edgar to life. And I'm not just talking about Bud Cort's voice, which does just something about the way he uses his voice really helps to give a personality to Edgar. But even before that, as he's learning and he's becoming self-aware, I think the scene that really captures it beautifully, as well as capturing that music video feel, is the cello duel between Edgar and Virginia Madsen's
All right, I see that.
Madeline, where he has just come to life. He is hearing her practice her cello upstairs, which began my obsession with two things as
Virginia
a kid.
Madsen.
Virginia Madsen and the cello. And she starts to play the minuet in G. And Edgar is fascinated by it. You can see him. He's working on Miles's brick. Miles is trying to design this earthquake-proof brick. And he's working on it alone, like completely by himself, which is bizarre.
I love how you're saying that that's bizarre. The talking computer is not bizarre in 1984.
Oh, there's a lot of bizarrety.
Okay,
but
just checking.
He's left him, and Miles, I guess Miles doesn't seem to find any of it unusual, which is what's bizarre. He claims to know nothing about computers, but he's got to know that this computer working on his stuff independently is unusual. But he starts to play along with her music, and every time she plays something, he imitates it, and they keep moving faster and faster until they're fully synchronized and playing the same song. And it's a neat way to show how he's learning. It's also a neat way to really do some beauty shots of the computer. They fly around the apartment, over the computer, over the keyboard, and it's really romanticizing this computer. And it's a neat juxtaposition between the classical instrument of the cello and the modern synthesizer instrument of the computer, and how those two things can work in unison together. Because it sounds very synthesized, like early Moog synthesizer style music, but it merges together so beautifully, and it sets the stage for her fascination with Miles, thinking he's the one producing this music.
It also sets the stage for many a computer developer to create music programs for your computer. Just saying. Just saying.
GarageBand?
Exactly. So that's a pretty good good. Mine is a little bit along the same lines and a little bit more basic at the same time. It's good 80s cheese. I will say that. It is pretty good 80s cheese. It's a little deep in terms of, exploring this idea of sentientness for a computer. But at the same time, there's a lot of cheesiness and it's just dripping in it. And that's all right. I'm not mad at it. I'm actually really glad for it. It's some of the things that you hope for when you go and you see an 80s movie, that there is this sort of cheesy factor happening, this wooing of this girl, right? And in a very, I feel like, more innocent time, just doesn't go all hardcore on you. It's just good old-fashioned cheese.
And all good sci-fi is served with a slice of cheese. Just a certain amount, depending on the type of sci-fi will determine the amount of cheese. This is a very liberal helping of cheese.
Yes.
But it is fun.
It is fun.
And it just really makes it a super popcorn enjoyable experience, like watching a great music video.
Yes. So I'm afraid to ask you this question because I don't even know if you're going to have the next two subjects, but I'm going to do it anyway. Folks, watch out. Again,
I will attempt to answer objectively, but it can be difficult.
Okay.
It can be difficult for me in this one because I'm seeing through 11-year-old eyes.
11-year-old eyes. All right, gotcha. So did your 11-year-old eyes find anything bad about this movie?
No, nothing.
Seriously?
Nothing. No. At 11, I didn't.
Okay. And now, do you want me to tell everybody how old you are?
Actually, I will say my 11-year-old self did realize 2 issues, and that was one.
Sorry, that was my homework alarm for Sunday. I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I got to do homework.
Yes, you're recording a podcast instead of doing your PhD homework.
Basically. That's kind of what that alarm just said.
Thank you.
Hey, all for you, honey.
So my 11-year-old self noticed 2 things. And one was that when he offers to fix Miles dinner, he pops the microwave open and there's a dish wrapped in foil, which even an 11-year-old knows you don't put foil in the microwave, and a computer that has chief sentience should certainly know this, unless Miles put it in there. But there's also, because the computer couldn't do it, which leads to the second one, that there's this little tank toy, and it was one that had a keypad on it. You could program it to do things.
Yes.
And Miles has one that is driving around in a couple of scenes, presumably connected to Edgar somehow. But at one point, it has... Of course, predicting Bluetooth.
Yes.
But it has a cocktail or a martini on it at one point that Miles steps on and slips. Who fixed that martini and put it on the little truck? Edgar has no arms, as he points out to Dr. Ruth at one point on the radio. So as an 11...
Played by Dr. Ruth.
As actually played by Dr. Ruth, a great cameo. At least a voice cameo. But that, as an 11-year-old, even I found ridiculous. As an adult, I can say that...
oh, wow. There's 11-year-olds and adults, good, bads, and uglies, okay?
That because they were going for such a music video style, I feel like, as I mentioned, it's hard to sustain that style for a full film if you really haven't worked on the script. And though some disparage the chemistry between the 2 actors... and between Lenny Van Dolen and Virginia Madsen. I thought it was good. They really go after him for saying he's completely lackluster. I really liked Lenny Van Dolen's character. I thought...
Well, he was a nerd.
Yeah, and I thought
so he's awkward.
I thought he pulled it off. Okay. I still do.
Virginia Madsen was in love with Lenny.
Apparently, she has admitted that...
Head over heels.
Yeah, that they really had it for each other on that set. They claim nothing happened, but that they're still really good friends to this day, but that they really had a thing for each other, and that made the film such a pleasure to work on for both of them.
Was it that they had a thing for each other, that she had a thing for him?
I guess that probably depends on maybe who you ask.
Virginia Madsen and Lenny Van Dolen. Somebody needs to go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, are we gonna get some truth on this?
Somebody's got to track them down. You know them.
But I feel like some of the dialogue and the relationship building in the middle could have been strengthened a bit. There's some weak dialogue in there, and I feel like that took it down a little bit.
Okay, is that your bad and ugly all wrapped in one, or do you actually have more?
No, I have an ugly.
Oh, you do have an ugly.
Yeah, I have an ugly.
All right. I'm just asking.
I don't want to have an ugly, but
okay. Wait. I didn't do my bad. Can I do my bad first?
I would never deprive you of your bad.
That's right. I mean, that would be my evil. So no, and I don't really have any evil.
That's evil. You gotta have the muah for full evil.
Since you said a Jamaican cuss word, I'm going to say one right now. You're a bumbo. Moving on.
Yes, anyone who has a bumbo
stop.
child
No,
seat.
You're not. Oh, I was like, stop saying it.
Anyone who has bumbo child seats, that is butt in patois.
Which would make sense because it keeps their butt still.
It does, but I bet most people who are talking about the bumbo they put their baby in don't really realize what they're saying.
It's really more like ass. It's really not really
I was trying
like
to bring myself back from what I said earlier.
No, it's a little bit more say it.
It's a little more of an expletive.
Yes, thank you. So I guess my bad is just it's along those same lines. It's a pacing issue. So in the middle of everything, it's sort of like Steve Barron says, "Hey, I want to put my stamp on this. Let's have some random old, music video in the middle of it," and that's tough. That makes that scene sometimes not unwatchable. It just is like, all right, when is this gonna end? Like montage gonna end?
Right, that we've taken this aside.
Right.
He has
like
said,
that colorful neighbor one. and Edgar's at home and there's some trippy ass color section and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Edgar is mad because Miles is taking out Madeline, and Miles won't let Edgar tell the truth to Madeline. He wants to impress her. He feels conflicted to a degree, but he really does not want her to find out he's been lying to her. And so...
I mean, is he really lying if he programmed the computer? Didn't he then technically do it?
Well, of course, as we know from Blade Runner, that anytime you use a computer as a slave and it has achieved sentience, it is going to get its revenge upon you.
Oh, and shit. So yeah, I guess.
It goes all Roy Batty on him and starts to try to destroy him. But what it does first is when it realizes that Miles has snuck Virginia Madsen out of the building, first, before he decides to go fuck with his life, he has a party for himself, and he puts on a record and plays this and shoots like lasers around the apartment and has lights really flashing weird. And the neighbors come down to shut him up. And of course, there's no one in the apartment. So it's a sequence that is fun, but it does take you out of the pacing.
It does.
Now, I think part of why it was greenlit and why it was...
it was so greenlit. Like, it was quick.
Yeah. And interesting enough, it is a Virgin production of Richard Branson. Is one of the producers on it. And yes. Virgin Music, they got into films for a very short time.
Very short, because all of them flopped. Sorry. Oh, God. Sorry. That just came out. I'm so sorry.
You are not going to be asked to fly on SpaceX.
No.
Virgin Galactic. No. He is totally not letting you on any Virgin Galactic flight. It's not about the company.
It's just, sometimes we make poor choices, and this just happened to be one of them. It's okay. I mean...
Hey, as Flashdance, as you pointed out, it's about fail, succeed.
Oh, try again. Yes. No, I know, and I'm not taking that away from them. I'm just saying it. That's why it just went under.
Interesting footnote, though, is that the early copies of this film on VHS...
Now, all of a sudden, there are a whole bunch of Virgin people wanting to put us out of business. Sorry.
Like the Virgin Megastore?
I almost worked for Virgin Megastore, actually, because I knew a lot.
But which music store did you work for?
I work for Specs.
Specs.
No, they tried to steal me away from Specs.
Did they really?
To Virgin.
Oh, so they almost poached you like...
No, but they poached a lot of them.
Yeah?
Yeah, because we actually knew music. This is like pre-internet that you had to go sing it to the people, and the people had to figure it out. So I was one of those people that you sung to.
Yeah.
And I would figure it out.
That's awesome.
And my specialty, of course, was 80s.
So you would have a lot of people who would show up and would say like, do you know that song? It goes like this. And they'd try and like hum a few bars and sing... Wow. And you would, so you were Shazam.
I was Shazam. Yes. We all were Shazam that worked in the store.
So you really had to know your shit.
Yeah. So I knew my 80s shit. We had somebody who knew alternative stuff and early 90s grunge. Mm-hmm. We had somebody who knew house music, house techno music. I also knew reggae. So that was a good bonus. And then we had somebody who knew rap. Wow. That was a big aside. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
So, and it's interesting that you mentioned Flashdance earlier, because Barron has mentioned that part of the reason this movie was greenlit so quickly was because Flashdance was such a success. And because of those vignettes in it that look like music videos, people all wanted to start doing that. And so that actually helped.
But that was a dance movie.
It was, and it's different. And he said, this isn't Flashdance 2.
No, because he says it's with a story. What the fuck ever.
Yes, we'll ignore that line. But now, a question back when you were talking about the issue of it slowing down, do you think that is an editing issue? Do you think that could have been fixed through editing, or do you think that's a script issue or a directing issue? Where do you think that falls?
It was a culmination of a lot of different things. Number one, they need to edit definitely some segments out, which is tough because the music does play such a large role, but as evidenced by our quotes, they don't really give them a lot of awesome things to say sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a few poignant moments where they're having really great dialogue, but for the most part, it's lacking. Maybe it's because there aren't enough outside pieces or people.
Right.
Like, I really don't think they did Maxwell Caulfield any favors as Bill.
He was supposed to have a slightly bigger role. He was supposed to be actually another part of this love. I don't know, at that point it's not even just a triangle. In fact, at one point you see his Porsche out on the street, which suggests that he spent the night.
Right.
Because she and he are very flirty at first, and when he's introduced, and that's Bill, it's said with this knowing, like, he is the great seducer, he's the, Casanova of our music company here. And so...
Yeah,
and then they don't do much with him throughout.
And I sort of hate it because Maxwell Caulfield, and this is...
I know
he's
where this
in
is
Grease
going.
too. Listen, he's in Grease too, and
Yes, he
I
is.
love him. But here's the thing is that...
And a bowl tonight. Isn't
No,
that-
we're going to score tonight.
Score. Yes, that's Grease 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but I want a cool writer, and he was it.
Mm-hmm.
Or he became it. But Max Caulfield, Grease 2 kind of tanked his career before
Sadly,
it ever got
yeah.
started.
Yeah.
Everybody really hated that movie or disliked that movie, to which now it's like a cult favorite. It really is like this
Yeah.
cult classic.
Well, it's Michelle Pfeiffer, too, so that helps.
And it is Michelle Pfeiffer and a whole host of awesome other characters and actors in that movie. But Max Caulfield, when I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get that guy. Like, I'm going to get that Max Caulfield.
They even have him in a leather jacket
Maxwell
at one point.
Caulfieldness. I know. I'm like, oh, I just need more of his like Britishness. Come on. And then we get nothing. Not really. And it made me sad. I felt like it was a waste.
It always stuck in my head the way he said, well, we must go. When he's talking to her about going to the party, he doesn't say we need to go or we got to go. He says, we must go.
Right. So to answer your question, I think it's a lot of different things, I guess, going back to it. I think it's an editing issue because I feel like maybe no one can control Barron in terms of what he wanted it to be like, because that's why they hired him.
Yeah.
So I understand that, and that's why I said understanding that he's a music video director makes me understand a lot more about Electric Dreams. But that's kind of also a problem.
Yeah.
Is that if you don't know that going in, then it just seems fucking weird and out of place, and it kills the pacing of it. The dialogue isn't there because I don't think that they brought in enough outside people into that triangle. They didn't really give, Miles or Madeline these other people that they're talking about their relationship to.
Right.
It's really just confined to all three of them. So
you think it could have been maybe even a little longer, but paced better?
not even longer. I just think you need to cut a couple of pieces out. Maybe not have all these crazy montages, or maybe make them make a little bit more sense or relevant, I guess. And then make it longer with the dialogue.
Which it is interesting that the theatrical release was apparently like 112 minutes and the video version is 92
minutes.
And so where's that missing time and what happens in that? I never saw it in the theater, so I don't know what could be missing, and I can't find it anywhere. So it either is completely lost or is sitting in some archive somewhere. But that could have, it probably doesn't fix those issues, but it might have helped a bit.
I don't know if it would have fixed all of the issues. Obviously, it didn't do something, but to cut it 30 minutes.
Yeah.
What was the deal?
What is that missing
Somebody know?
side story? Some of it is probably Bill.
Some of you guys have got to know. You have to tell us.
Someone's got to know.
You have to tell us. Please email us. You haven't seen whatmovie@gmail.com. Please go on our website. Please go on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, however you want to do it or however you want to communicate with us. Please let us know what we're missing.
And actually, since I haven't read it yet, but we have it on order, it could be that Steve Barron talks about that in his autobiography, Eggs and Chips and Billie Jean, A Trip Through the 80s. Really hard to find. It's
not really hard to find.
Well, I thought it was. I found it for like $1,000 on Amazon. But if you go to eggsandchipsandbilliejean.com, you can find a place to order it down at the bottom. And
it's from Steve Barron.
Straight from Steve Barron. And I'm looking very forward to my copy because I'm really curious to not only read about if there's anything about Electric Dreams, but just all of the different personalities that he worked with throughout his long career as a music video director and how he was so sought after and some of what he experienced.
So yeah, You're Ugly. We never did that. We never did mine either. So before we go into production notes with Parry.
There is overall a great sequence at the beginning where we're introducing different technologies of this era of the 80s, and it's remote control programmable cars and language lessons on Walkman, on cassettes, a number of different technologies, calculator watches. And so Miles is looking at all of these things while he waits for his flight. And there's one piece of technology in there that this has been a source of humor in many movies, and it's not okay, is there's some fat shaming. She's programmed, it's a calorie counter, and there's a woman who you don't see her face, but she is programming in the calories, and it says, that many calories means you're fat. And then they cut back to it later, and it says, this means you're still fat. And it's not cool. And it's a little hard to watch.
Yeah, it was a little bleep. I mean, in terms of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's a tiny
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And there are other things you might call ugly, but to me that was just very glaring in looking at it from a current perspective.
Yeah, you went for like the true ugly. I didn't go so deep, or maybe I did.
I could say Virginia Madsen's Little House on the Prairie dress she's wearing when her cello gets killed.
That's the 80s, bro. That's just...
What is that?
I don't know.
Or she goes out to Miles' date wearing like a wedding dress doily-looking thing that has all these layers of weird lace.
It was all about Little House on the Prairie somehow. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I didn't wear that shit.
I don't know if I could go out with Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I love Virginia Madsen, but that dress does her no justice.
Oh, it doesn't do her any justice. I'm sure she felt the same way too.
Probably.
I guess my ugly might be, I don't really love Edgar's temper tantrum.
When he blows up the apartment, like just shoots everything. He becomes a weapon, basically.
There's something when he becomes like the Samsung Galaxy when it blew up on the airlines and shit.
No.
Well, it got caught on fire. It didn't blow up. It like caught on fire.
Hi, this is a lawyer from Samsung. Would like to have a conversation with you about your podcast.
Happened. No. That was a true thing that happened. And we're an LLC, so we're poor as shit. So that's never going to happen. It probably won't happen after this. Like, they're not fucking sponsoring us. But
but we have a washer and dryer that are Samsung.
We have a lot of things that are Samsung that haven't blown up, so I feel okay about that. I mean, it's not their fault. It's faulty equipment. Some shit happens sometimes.
But if our computer gets pissed off at us, it might turn our Samsungs into weapons.
Seriously? I was trying to squash it, and you just kept going with it? No, this is
just don't insult Siri.
This is an editable moment. This is an editable moment. So the ugly is just sort of that whole computer temper tantrum. I don't know. There's something about it. There's something about his voice that I'm not loving either.
About Edgar's voice?
About Edgar's voice in that temper tantrum. It's like he gets like this graveliness, and I think it's a temper tantrum with Miles that it's just too over the top. It's almost like he doesn't understand love, but he can understand hate. And I don't think you can have one really without the other.
True, but isn't it interesting that people, often unfortunately men, seem to be more capable of hate and rage than they are of true expressions of love or a true understanding of love.
Oh my God.
But he gets the voice.
I feel like every woman just out there like growing like, oh, and you have him and you're criticizing his movie.
You know what? She watched it all the way through, and
twice.
That is all that one can ask, is that.
But I don't think this is such a bad, harsh criticism.
No, it isn't.
I could say a whole lot of other things. I think that's pretty good.
I was responding to all of the fictional women that
saying,
were awing.
They're not fictional. They definitely awed at that. I enter odd.
If I talk closer to the mic like this.
If you talk in your deep voice, it really does something to my ears. So you got me.
So when he starts talking like, don't put your hands on me. He says, I'll take care of this. And he gets very...
No, but it's
smarmy.
It's smarmy and it's ugly. I mean, I guess in the way in which he's talking.
Yeah.
And I know it's to show hurt and anger, but my question is that, okay, you're sentient, but can you really express all of these emotions? And in some of it, and this jealousy, it's like he almost went from such a large leap from not understanding love to creating a love song, and then going to extreme hate and jealousy very quickly. The arc didn't make sense to me.
Well, much like the replicants, as we talked about in Blade Runner.
Oh God, please let's not.
He hasn't had a lot of experience with emotions, and so he doesn't really know how to process them well, I feel like. And one other rebuttal.
Are you justifying this?
Also,
Can't you just say yeah?
He learned it all from television. That's how he learned everything. Like Johnny Five, he learned all of his experience with humans.
Which
and
one came
emotions from
first, Johnny
television.
5 or this one?
Johnny Five is after.
Johnny Five's
It's
after.
like 86, 87.
Right, so we know where they got this from.
Yeah. So,
to a certain extent.
but yeah, so he.
Sorry, I don't want to put words in people's mouths. Although I do. Oops.
But I feel like maybe it could be a commentary on, because at one point he says that was a lie. Where'd you learn that word? General Hospital. And so it might be about what we learned from our televisions, especially as a child like Edgar.
Well, we could really talk about social control on TV and movies, but let's not just do that, shall we? That's another podcast, I feel like.
Is it any...
It's another podcast. I kind of want to talk about it. Because once I start, I'm not going to be able to stop talking about social constructionism and media and how many different places media really is coming from. And it's not that many and a very few, and they're all white men. So I don't think that that's a smart idea.
What I was just going to say is it any wonder that when he's angry, what he shows is basically the CBS logo as his red evil eye is exactly the CBS logo.
Is it exactly?
It is exactly I've researched that.
Oh, really? I thought it might be a bullseye.
It also kind of looks like in Colossus, the Forbin Project, which is a 1970 movie, great movie, about a computer that achieves sentience and learns exponentially. And it takes over the world. And it has a speaker that it has constructed for it that looks sort of like that eye. So I have to wonder if Edgar is sort of an evolution of Colossus in film, that they got their inspiration from it. And I think that Colossus was an inspiration for Skynet. And I think that maybe Edgar becomes Skynet. Edgar pretends in the end to remove himself, but I think he actually just went into the military computers and destroyed the world because he was so pissed off and created Terminator. So I feel like maybe that...
I feel like you're too close to this, and I think we should move on. I think everyone is agreeing with me out there in land. If you're not agreeing with me, that's okay. You can email Parry. Personally, I take no harm or offense, or you can email me and tell me to shut the hell up. That's fine too. But I think, maybe we're overthinking this too much. And we need to go into maybe production notes, maybe. Let's get back to the movie, okay? Production notes with Parry. Doom. I'm so afraid of this.
I am so deep within this. I want you to start with the production notes, and then I will continue. I'll try and temper myself.
All right, try to temper yourself. I'm just going to go over basic, facts that are sort of out there. The budget for this was $5.5 million, but it didn't pull even 2.5 at the box office. It really was sort of a failure at the box office.
Even though Siskel and Ebert rated it above The Last Starfighter and Neverending Story.
Yeah, they rated it a 3.5 out of 4 stars.
But they talked more about the camera angles, which at the time were more unique. They're like, such the angles around the computer.
Yeah, and the graphic design. And there was a lot of different things that were good concepts and they were out there. I think.
And it was a fresh idea. Right.
Critically, though, it didn't do so great. Rotten Tomatoes gives it about a 47, which isn't horrific.
No.
At all. IMDb, you have like a 6.5 out of 10, and then Google users love it at like a 90%. So there is this love. I told you it's great 80s cheese. There's this great 80s cheesiness about it. What's interesting though is that after the VHS release, it was never released in DVD in the US because this was a US UK, really more UK driven. Everything else is like a region 2, is that right?
Last year a Blu-ray was released on Region 2.
Right.
And I need to get myself a Region 2 player so I can have the special edition Blu-ray.
We have one.
Cool. Because I didn't think it worked. But I really want this new edition of it. I'm really looking forward to watching that along with reading my Steve Barron autobiography.
So, never released in DVD in the US. There's just all sorts of weirdness about trying to procure it. I think it's on YouTube, and I think you can actually watch it in its entirety on YouTube.
Yes.
Oh, shit. Now that I just fucking put that out in the universe, they're going to fucking take it off from some trademark shit. Sorry, guys. Wow. Epic failing all over the place today.
I have a VHS copy I bought on eBay like 10 years ago, and I made my own DVDs of it, my own menu systems, my own background videos.
Of course you did. Of course you did. So I think that's all that I have for production notes. See how short and abbreviated I kept it?
Well, I will try not to go too overboard, but I think one of the neat things that Barron did with this was he really wanted them to respond to Edgar as though he really were a computer. He didn't want an actor to be seen in the room. So he asked Bud Cort, who, if you've never seen Harold and Maude, that Bud Cort is well known for, it's a fantastic movie. But he asked Bud Cort to do his lines from inside of a box on set so that he was there reading them. They weren't pre-recorded. He's reading the lines, but from inside of a box where they could not see him. So they have to respond to the computer prop.
How much fucking drugs were these people doing? No, for real.
Well, it was the 80s, and it was music video.
Okay, I'm just saying. I'm just wondering.
Also, the salesperson mentioned several different computer brands, and she asks him what's his preference. Apple, Pear, Wang, which, if anyone remembers Wang computer commercials that used to be crazy complicated.
Yeah,
But
my dad used to work for Wang.
your dad worked for Wang?
Yeah, my dad worked for Quip, Wang, Exxon. Yeah.
Wow.
He was an authorized Wang dealer. That sounds really bad.
I think we need a t-shirt, authorized Wang dealer.
Stop making fun of my Asianness.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I got you off track.
Oh,
Yes.
heavily off track.
Oh, yes. My work here is done.
But the name of the computer is Pinecone.
Yes,
That's
I know.
Pinecone Computers,
I
which
have that in my notes.
also plays on Acorn, which was an early British computer that was connected to, I believe it was the BBC, that you would watch a show and you would work on the computer alongside it.
But wasn't Pinecone actually a reference to Apple?
I think it was a direct reference to
It
Apple,
was,
but it
right.
also could have connected to Acorn, which definitely predated this.
Right. How big was this motherfucking hard drive? Because it downloads like these whole server rooms worth of information.
Mm-hmm.
It downloads all these TV shows. It's building this fucking brick, and it's running a music software program at the same time. Fuck you. My computer crashes if I run Spotify and iTunes at the same time. And it's a decent computer. Unless somebody wants to give me a really awesome newness and amazingness, it's not an Apple. So if somebody from Apple wants to give me a new and amazing computer that will run all my shit at the same time, I'm open to that. But how big and what that shit just seems impossible to me. Like, we're talking about the fucking age of DOS. Like, I don't understand how they can even conceive of something running all of these programs simultaneously and then getting upset and becoming sentient.
That's why it was called a fairy tale for computers, that computers could dream of having unlimited hard drive space.
Or we could dream of having
Yes.
unlimited hard drive space.
That was always an issue, is that he is doing so many different things, and at the time, and he has disk drives, and at the time you couldn't play a game without having to insert another floppy in the middle of the game. So there is no way that he could have.
Right.
Now, he isn't able to.
Oh, wait, millennials. Hey, millennials.
Yes,
There's this thing.
this is a message for you.
Not a jump drive, not an external hard drive, nothing like that. But you actually inserted these 5.5 or 5.25 by 5.25 inch and the discs, and they were called floppies, and it would write on that disc, not like a CD disc. It was sort of like a CD disc, but like one layer of a CD disc.
And it was rewritable.
It was rewritable.
And if you didn't want it to record over what you had, there was a little punch square out of it, and you had to put a piece of tape over
on it. Yeah.
Or
no, that's how you could write over it.
You had to cut the little punch out to keep it from writing, right?
Right. And then, I mean, there were like the 3.5s after that, the diskettes.
That were no longer floppy, but still called floppy.
Right. Because that's what we called them. So, yes, sorry, millennials. I forgot to include you in on all of that. But so there's no freaking way they could ever do this. Not back then.
And his memory is so full already from all the stuff. when Miles like commits industrial espionage and connects to his boss's computer mainframe in the
I'll
basement.
Just type his password. What's his password again?
And no, that's never mentioned again. No FBI shows up at the door to say, have you been stealing secrets from your company, from your architectural firm? That he downloads tons of information, and that's what overloads the computer and causes him to have to pour champagne all over it, which brings it to life. But I know
you just summed up the ridiculousness fucking right there.
He's drinking champagne because he has no beer. And he's trying to think up all the names of, he knows it's a fairy tale. And
first of all, how many single men have champagne in their fridge right now?
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I haven't been a single man in a long time. But Madeline is listening through the heating vents from upstairs. She's eavesdropping. And she hears him saying all of these different fairy tale names. And it sounds like he's coming up with safe words for some kind of crazy sex life. Because she's like, Rumpelstiltskin, and she's like, that's a tiger down there. But
when he's coming with the passwords.
Yeah, and here's the champagne pop because the computer's overheating. It pops the champagne cork, and that's when he pours it on there. But she's only hearing him say things like, not so fast, you just got here, when the modem is trying to kick him off. It seems like she's thinking, like, what is this guy up to down here?
I have no fucking idea. That's all right. My brain's pretty fried just thinking about how a floppy disk is going to be able to do all this shit.
I also had to wonder, if he can't afford decent furniture, how does he buy this computer?
He has no furniture. How is he supposed to be an architect and have no cool architectural furniture?
He's got a futon.
Go fuck yourself with the futon. He has the one record rug. That's it.
The record rug is awesome.
It's legit as fuck.
Yes.
That's it.
We need IKEA to start making that rug.
IKEA, get on that. Will we make one of a mixtape too?
Now, I want to point out that the editor actually went on to do a number of things, but one of his biggest was...
Is it Peter Honess?
I believe so.
Honess.
Yeah, he edited Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Shit, seriously?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and the writer was actually a producer on Yentl, and he actually worked with Steve Barron's mother on Yentl, and that's...
Oh, I read that.
Yeah,
right.
He... I guess Steve Barron would send his music videos to his mother to watch, and she was watching them with Rusty Lemerand, who was the producer of... or the writer for Electric Dreams, but he was working on producing Yentl. He watched it, and they ended up working together. But Rusty Lemerand also, he was the one who came up with the idea of having the gopher as a main character in Caddyshack. It originally was just a very minor thing, but
I've never seen Caddyshack.
He really pushed for it to... Oh, well, that's on the list.
I know the gopher is a big deal.
But he really pushed for the gopher to be this puppet, to be a big character in it that is a continuing arc that Bill Murray's character is always chasing. So that was his contribution there. So not as much a production note, but talking about a couple interesting things with Steve Barron. He directed some episodes of The Storyteller, which was a Jim Henson show that
I can't.
I don't think.
Can't.
Well, I don't think it was The Dark Crystal.
Fucking thank God. Jesus Christ.
We will be reviewing The Dark Crystal at some point. But he did a version of Treasure Island with Eddie Izzard and Elijah Wood, which is pretty wild.
Frodo.
So that was recent. That was like 2012. In the dream sequence where he starts to dream to the Culture Club song, when Edgar is dreaming, the first thing he does is start counting sheep. And supposedly that is a reference back to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep from, of course, Philip K. Dick, which connects us back to not only the TV show, but back to Blade Runner. So that's a neat little fun thing. Also, in the song, when Giorgio Moroder was starting to put this together, he had an idea for the song Together in Electric Dreams. And when they got Phil Oakley to do it, Oakley wrote the lyrics on like a cigarette pack on the way to the studio and just did a couple records of it. It was like super...
Oakley is from the Human League,
yes.
FYI. Okay.
But one of the things he did when he was working on those lyrics is he used the line, although we're miles and miles apart. No one realizes that he intentionally used Miles because the name of the character is Miles. And he has said that that was a very intentional joke he put in there, but no one ever picks up on it.
What would he use? Kilometers? Because technically he was British. Wouldn't he use kilometers? Meters?
That's a much harder lyric to sing.
Although we are meters and meters apart.
Meters could work, but kilometers would be much more difficult.
Hey, that's a great segue then into soundtrack smashes, and I'm sure you have so much to say about this soundtrack.
A bit, but I'd like to hear first what your favorite track was.
It's definitely Love is Love by the Culture Club. I think that it's topical and it's pretty timeless in its own way. I mean, who doesn't love the Culture Club? That's number one.
Culture Club had a couple of tracks in here.
They had a couple of tracks on the soundtrack, and then they had a couple of tracks that were in the movie, or segments were in the movie. So that was pretty cool to see. It's also, put together really by Giorgio Moroder, who did Flashdance. Let's just be freaking ridiculous. He did so much, and he also did this. And
he has a cameo in the film.
He does.
Yeah, at the very end when Edgar has sent the song out to the
Together
whole
in Electric Dreams.
And they do this super happy like Pepsi commercial montage at the end that's just insane, with people losing their minds over the song that has taken over all the radio stations in California. When the radio producer comes in and says, what is going on?
Oh, you're right. That's him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You don't even see his full face.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, so he's just a genius behind all of it. And Culture Club and that song Love is Love. I mean, there's so much in the world right now that we're talking about in terms of love and people's ideas of love and partnering and just everything like that. So I think for me, that's the song that holds up.
And I think it works because it's the song that Edgar comes up with after Miles asks Edgar to write a love song, and he comes up with this just disaster of a song because he doesn't understand what love is. And this song shows that he is starting to understand. And though I don't think he ever really fully understands what it is, this song does show that he has a better idea at that point of what love is.
Right.
Or at least how to sing about it.
Yeah, and it's sort of just this thing like sometimes you just can't really define it. And that's okay. It just is.
Yes.
And you don't need these big definitions or big explanations. Sometimes it's okay to say love is just love.
Right.
And everyone should just be able to accept that and move on. So, and speaking of moving on, now that you've learned about my soundtrack smash, what's yours? Uh-oh.
It's hard for me to separate the score from the songs, and I really love Madeline's theme that Moroder did. I think that it's not only a beautiful sounding piece, but it shows Edgar's evolution from very simple synthesized version of what a cello would sound like to actually sounding like a real cello. And it shows that maybe he's been working on this in the background. We never talk about, can he multitask? What other work might he have been doing? But he's definitely grown, and it shows that growth. And at that moment when he can't speak to her because when they have their fight, Miles rips him apart and the audio chip comes out. And so all he can do is play music. And it's really, I think, a beautiful sequence when he no longer has a voice, but Edgar expresses himself and how he feels about Madeline through the music he has created for and through an approximation of her own music through the cello, and tries to connect with her that way. And when the tear falls from her into Edgar, into his chip, I really thought that was a beautiful way of showing, as we've talked about on the show with other movies, where the line between technology and machine and humanity really starts to blur when you can no longer tell the difference.
I don't know. That whole scene for me is problematic for so many different reasons. I don't discount your pick. I just think that scene is problematic because so she cries, but then when Miles asks her what is it about him that she loves, she lists everything else but the songs.
She also
it
says,
just
she says, I like the way you look, is the first thing she says.
Yeah,
And then she says, I like the way you think. And number 3 is, I like the way you look at the world.
yeah, and none of it's really about this interplay about music. Sometimes she talks about it at the very beginning, but in the end, she doesn't talk about it at all. And I don't know if that's just to make Miles feel better about the fact, because now she knows that it was the computer, not necessarily Miles.
Does she even understand? She seems confused.
I don't know, but that makes me confused. So that's, I think, part of what I'm saying is like, by not having this outside person that maybe who she could talk to, or this outside interjection into all of their lives,
to give some exposition to
something, you're just left to be like, okay, but I thought you just cried at the computer because you realized that it was the computer and not Miles. So
she never was a very good listener. The whole scene in the grocery store when he tries to explain that he's not a musician, she just doesn't seem to be hearing that at all, and keeps asking him about his music and about his instrument, and just never hears any time that he either denies it outright or even sounds suspicious. It's the kind of movie where people do something suspicious and other people just discount it with kind of a shake of the head.
Well, people do that in real life.
They do. They hear what they want to hear.
Yes, we all tell each other exactly how we are, and then we all ignore what the other person has said. And people are telling you who they are, and you're ignoring it.
Which leads to a lot of confusion in relationships or disappointment when later you go, you're not what I thought you are. And it's like, no, they were always who
but
you
you
thought
showed
they were.
me.
But,
but through your actions. No, my friends. Listen to words. Listen to lack of words. It's very important. It's a life lesson from today.
Well, my track that is a track with vocals would have to be...
Oh, wait, there's another one?
I was doing a soundtrack versus a...
God, you're killing me right now.
Together in Electric Dreams. I really love that song, and it is one of my favorite 80s songs. It's fun. I like the lyrics. I like how Phil Oakley sings it. And there's a couple new versions of it out. There's a remake of the song that just came out this past year by a young artist, Jasmino. And she did 2 versions. One is a very 21st century sounding version, but she does an acoustic version that I think is fantastic. So I think they're both enjoyable. And I really like hearing remixes of songs that I like, and just hearing how people have changed them around and reworked them. And I really liked Jasmino's versions.
Gotcha. I think they're available on Spotify too. One thing I did forget to go ahead and mention was that the soundtrack in the United States wasn't released until September 1998.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was totally an import from the UK up until September 1998, which just lends to the fact that obviously this was much more of a British beloved show than the United States, and then the US finally got on board. So why did you, I guess in wrapping it up, why did you really think that this movie was important for me to see? Other than the obvious.
As I mentioned before, in the mid-'80s, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather. And my grandfather was a computer pioneer at Duke University. And he loved all things technology. He had an Intellivision in his house that we would play together, that he didn't just play for me. He would play it on his own. He, as I said, was an early adopter of HBO and MTV. He loved them. I Want Candy was like one of his favorite videos that he would show me. And maybe it's because it's got a girl dancing on the beach with a mohawk. I don't know what he was into.
That is awesome.
But he loved all of that. He loved Max Headroom. He introduced me to the original Star Trek. So a lot of who I am, I attribute to Joe Kieran. He's
Pap for the win.
Yeah, he's really a huge part of who I was and who I've become. And his view on technology was that he saw a lot of hope for the future in technology and a lot of the potential for it. But he was not unaware of the potential pitfalls, which is why I think he liked showing me movies where the computer behaved badly. He was the one who showed
to play a game.
War Games, I believe I saw with him. He wanted to show me the Terminator, but I think he rented by mistake the Exterminator and didn't show it to me. But he understood that it was something that had to be treated with a certain amount of care. but he was very positive about what it could be used for. And also the fact that he would tape all of these shows and movies for me. He had a 1985 Mitsubishi HS710 VCR that looked like a boombox. Very unusual, very rare item. Had like a plug-in video camera. But he would tape everything. He took that VCR everywhere. When he went on vacation to visit us, he'd bring it with him. And he would bring movies. And we would watch a lot of movies together. And my parents did not always approve. They had to have a talk with him once as to why he was showing me all these movies that had adult moments and more adult themes. But there were a lot of messages he was trying to tell me. And at that time, of course, we had this convergence of home videos, this music videos. All the culture of the 80s was really coming together at that point. And he was capturing a lot of it for me and presenting it to me, but he was also there to talk about it. And so in a media literacy fashion, we would discuss these themes and discuss these films and what they meant. And so it means a lot to me because not only was it a very formative time for me, but I think it encapsulates a lot of his message, which was treat technology with respect and use it for good, and it will work with you. But if you use it for evil or abuse it, it can turn on you, and the results can be Skynet, as I'm convinced Edgar has become.
So it shaped you, essentially.
Deeply and truly. And for all the cheese factors that are there and all of the weaknesses, to me, the essential message is still about how you treat technology and how you work with it and how you understand it and misunderstand it. So all that from a music video movie, for me, I feel like that is the deeper message for me always in Electric Dreams.
Gotcha. So you think I need to have lessons in regards to technology?
I think you treat your phone very, very well. I think
really, my phone?
I think your Siri loves you.
You're so funny. And on that note, thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. We are treating our technology with the utmost respect, in that we're going to put it to sleep now. Thank you guys so much for listening to You Haven't Seen What. Please visit youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.com.
Yep, all of our technologies.
All of our technologies, yes. To go ahead and actually get the links to, I think the soundtrack for Electric Dreams is up there. I think even the link maybe to the DVD, but you have to double check the region for that for sure. And I put that disclaimer on there too. Make sure you check out our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, subscribe, all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, and again, as I've asked before, we'd love to hear your thoughts on not only the films, but on how it connects to you and to your history and your childhood, or how it makes you feel. We'd very much be interested to hear your emotions.
Touchy-feely stuff.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do that. Or if you've never seen it before and you do see it based on our recommendation or our conversation,
let us know.
Let us know. Even if it's that you fucking hated it and you want to kill us for making you watch it, let us know.
Yeah. If you don't think it's a fair representation for you personally of Steve Barron's talent, go back and watch the Aha video and Billie Jean, and you'll feel all the love there.
So thank you guys so much for listening to us. Thanks, Parry, for showing it to me. And we'll be back next week. And remember,
be kind.
Rewind. Bye.
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 Oh, or what does Edgar say at the end?
Oh, are you putting me to sleep?
Yes. Do we need to sleep the computer
Sleep.
now?
Bye, guys.